Yo friends, I want to show you something magical today. No lights or mirrors or camera trickery. This is a black walnut. And I just cracked that thing open with the sole of my very thin barefoot style shoe. I'm standing in the remnants of one of the oldest food forests in the westernized world. The asterisk here is just because I want to give a lot of credit to indigenous communities all across the world, Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, who have been growing food in an agricultural system using trees for most of human history as far as we can tell. But post-colonization, post-industrialized agriculture, and perennial crop, annual crop agriculture, we're now rediscovering agriculture using trees, and this is one of the first rediscoverings, the first rebuilt food forest. These very special black walnuts are part of a series of trees here in downtown Downington, which was the old 70, 80 acre farm of a gentleman by the name of John Hershey, who was living in the early mid-1900s and working very hard at growing lots of trees that were very good at growing tons of food that was easy to access and break into. So this here is an absolutely beautiful and ancient black walnut tree. Some kind of fun things about it here. You can see this graft line. This is the bark here, and then right up here the bark kind of changes. That's where John Hershey grafted a new variety of black walnut onto the roots of this tree. And he did it in a couple different places here. So here's another one on that same tree. So this is the original tree growing here, and with no graft as far as I can see. Here's graft 1, so this is a second variety, and over here's graft 2, there's a third variety. That's why this one tree is dropping what are very clearly different varieties of walnuts. John Hershey collected trees and scion wood from some of the best cultivars of edible trees all across North America and brought most of them here to his farm. And so his farm is was full of these beautiful grafted trees, very old, dropping absolutely tons of nuts and fruits every year. I say was because, unfortunately, most of it's gone. John Hershey died in the mid-1900s, and his farm was sold off, and most of the trees were cut down to make way for suburbanization. We have this beautiful black walnut tree, an absolute stellar example of its species, right next to parking lot as far as the eye can see. There's actually a Chick-fil-A half a mile over that way. So everything we're working with here is actually remnants of what used to be a really cool site, and still has some pretty cool parts to it. These trees have been cut down slowly over the last 60 years or so, till just a handful remain. But those handful are super cool. And unfortunately, some of these trees are still being cut down. Even this year, I saw this beautiful, beautiful crabapple tree, zero disease, just covered in some of the tastiest apple fruit I've ever tasted in my life. And it was just living its life, healthy and strong, and I come back this year and she's gone, just a stump. I double-checked my pictures from last year. I'm like, this couldn't be. Like, this was where it was, right? And she gone. This is her stump right here. It's kind of a weird thing. I've spoken with a number of people recently about this tree. I was here with a group of people a few weeks ago, and one of them said he grew up in this area and grew up climbing on that tree and eating from it as a kid. And it was really hard to see it gone. It was a little bit like losing a loved one. But that's some of why I'm back here today. These trees, their genetics will live on, and their seeds, so I'm making it a point to come and collect a whole bunch of seeds to share and sell and send to whoever wants some. I, for example, wasn't really that interested in black walnuts until I visited this property. I've always looked at the tree like a weed. It just grows everywhere. It drops tons of nuts that are almost inaccessible. I had to buy like a $150 nutcracker to break into some of them, and yeah, it was ridiculous. But then you come here and you see these wonderful grafted variety of trees that are producing tons of nuts that I can stomp on and break open and into. It's just like, oh wow, like this is an example of like what could be for this tree. It's not just black walnuts. I'm collecting a ton of hickory and American persimmon and pecans, all to grow out and sell and share with whoever wants some. These American persimmon trees are some of the most productive persimmon trees I've ever seen. They make incredibly tasty fruit. It's smaller than your traditional Asian persimmon, which you'll see in grocery stores, but it's incredibly delicious. And in a few weeks here, the ground will be almost like 6 inches deep in persimmons, it feels like. These trees will drop from now until December or so. John Hershey, his main focus was working with farmers, not just for food for humans, but even more primarily food for livestock. So trees that dropped a variety of food, a ton of it, for a long period of time to feed cows and pigs and chickens and sheep and so on. So the black locust, the hickory, the persimmons, there's a bunch of honey locust here as well, which drops very tasty pods, which I've heard argued could be used as a sugar substitute for the sugar beet or the sugar cane. Some beautiful oak trees as well with large, low tannin acorns. And even here in the middle of the woods, you can get a sense for some of his handiwork here, a graft line for another tree in the Carius species. I think this was actually a hecan, a cross between a hickory and a pecan. I think being here humbles me. I don't know, maybe it's I'm reaching like middle age or so, not really. But I think some, maybe having a kid, I think some about legacy, and I don't need to do stuff in life for other people to remember me. But you think you want to have some sort of impact in the world before you go. And here I see this dude who planted some just incredible trees that are holding on to the genetics of a lot of breeding work done by indigenous peoples and continuing that breeding work. And these trees are feeding wildlife and feeding people, and I'm able to collect these seeds and grow them out to be other really beautiful, unique trees and send them all over the country. So I'm just inspired by this person who did his own thing. He found a lot of meaning and value in it, and yet it reaches far beyond his life and impacts a lot of people. Yeah, I'm really humbled and excited and inspired by what I've seen here today. J. Russell Smith, in his book Tree Crops, talks extensively about this style of agriculture and its importance to reintroduce to North America. Not only was this the way things had been done for so long, but we're like actively harming our landscape by plowing everything up to grow tons of corn and soybeans. So much soil is just being washed downstream and out into the oceans, where instead trees produce a ton of food, and they don't need the soil to be plowed up, and a lot of these native trees don't need nearly, if any, the kind of spraying and pesticides and everything that goes into corn and soybeans. So you see a plaque like this, I don't know, it's cool. There's some sharing of history here, which is really neat. But man, this plaque was put here because they they cut down an absolute ton of his trees to build more apartments. So I don't know. What would have John wanted? His trees to stay around and keep spreading their seeds and genetics, or apartments? But John was real involved with J. Russell Smith and this vision for agriculture, this vision for using trees to grow a ton of our crops and replace our addiction and need for corn and soybeans. And he hasn't really mentioned it in his book, but replace our addiction to petroleum too. The corn and soybean industry is incredibly reliant on the use of tons of fossil fuels, and these trees obviously aren't. No one's taken care of these trees in a really long time, and here they still stand. Boy, isn't this an image that says something about our world? Is this beautiful, almost 100-year-old tree sitting across the street from a Chick-fil-A, slowly being encroached upon by suburban sprawl. And yet there's a lot of hope and excitement too. There's some really cool people who are working really hard to preserve as much of this as they can and to replant really special trees with the permission of the township in areas where some of those trees were taken out. So as the food forest is being removed, it's also very slowly being rebuilt. Some cool things there too. Anyway, friends, hope you're somewhat inspired, not too depressed. And if you want to buy some sweet trees grown from some really sweet trees, they'll be ready in about a year. Have a great day, friends.